Three, two, one, here we go. RAINMAN'S Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey, it's the Rain Man. Real quick, before we get into today's episode, I want to give a big shout out to all of you who have subscribed to RAINMAN'S Take. Thank you very much. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I know you're going to enjoy the content that we provide over here at RAINMAN'S Take. Please go ahead and give the site a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, which you'll find at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Also, if you could watch this video to the end, I would really appreciate it because that helps us with the YouTube algorithms so that we can broaden our reach, get out to more people, and crank out more great content for you. So thank you again for being a part of the RAINMAN'S Take community. And with that out of the way, topic for today is fascism. What is it? And who are the actual fascists in the United States today? So let me first start by saying right now, I love what Elon Musk is doing at Twitter. He's pulling back the curtain for all who want to see on just how nefarious Twitter has been over the last several years. Musk's recent Twitter files dump has been unbelievable. And what I love about it is that he's obviously hitting close to the mark because based on all the vitriolic responses that have come his way from the Beltway establishment and the mainstream media, I'm liking Musk more and more based on what he's doing. Now, obviously, I'm going to continue to watch and evaluate his moves and will base my opinions accordingly. But right now, I love what he's doing. All right, so I'm not going to cover Elon's latest poll about giving up CEOship of Twitter, as the news around him right now is coming fast and furious. I do have some takes on the whole bot accounts thing, and I may address those in another episode in the future. But what I wanted to talk about today is so important as it pertains to Elon and his current actions at Twitter. And of course, what I'm talking about is the now famous Twitter files dump. The 7-installment release of the Twitter files has been nothing more than amazing. An amazing view behind the scenes of what is really going on. Unfortunately, anyone who only listens to the mainstream media will most likely not hear anything about them. For me, it confirms everything I've been saying about the legacy media and how corrupt the cabal actually is. Now, that cabal that I'm talking about is the mainstream media, the hardcore establishment operatives, both within the leftist wing of the Democratic Party and the Beltway bureaucracy, and how they're kind of joined at the hip right now, it seems. But corrupt is actually not accurate. What is more accurate is to say that the relationship between the media, the government, and the private sector in this country is actually fascism. And that's what I want to talk about today. All we have heard for the last 4 years is that Trump and the Republican Party are fascists, Nazis, and want to have total control over the government and society. The Twitter files expose beyond any doubt that it's actually the Democrats and the leftist establishment that is actually to blame and is actually the problem right now. So first, let's start with some highlights of what exactly is fascism. Benito Mussolini is considered the father of modern fascism, even though the origins of the philosophy of fascism goes back almost to, well, it does go back to the ancient Romans. Mussolini said in 1929, fascism should more properly be called corporatism because it is the merger of state and corporate power. Now, back in 1929, corporate power was control of the means of the productions of goods. In today's information economy, where information and content are the products, big tech is the new corporate power. So, more on Mussolini's ideas of fascism. And this is from Fordham University's website, their Modern History Sourcebook page. And the article is titled Benito Mussolini, What is Fascism? And this is from 1932. The fascist state organizes the nation, but leaves a sufficient margin of liberty to the individual. The latter is deprived of all useless and possible harmless freedom, but retains what is essential. The deciding power in this question cannot be the individual, but the state alone. Let that sink in. I'll read that quote again. The fascist state organizes the nation, but leaves a sufficient margin of liberty to the individual. The latter is deprived of all useless and possibly harmful freedom, but retains what is essential. The deciding power in this question cannot be the individual, but the state alone. Now, I feel that that's happening right now in our country. Our government thinks it knows best what's best for us, and we as citizens are not smart enough to handle certain freedoms. In this case, think freedom of speech. So what does this look like? It's generally done through propaganda and censorship. So there are no competing narratives to the state's position. Now, that is exactly what has been happening over the last several years. It's no secret that the vast majority of big tech companies are run by leftists and are in lockstep with the current progressive Democratic Party and a large percentage of the Beltway bureaucracy. So power and control are their main goals, and the official narrative is in place to accomplish just that. All competing narratives must be crushed, and that's what we've seen with the Twitter dump. We have seen a very natural blending of government and private sector to promote leftist positions. To me, that is exactly what Mussolini was talking about. The state and the private industry aligned with the same goals. Authoritarian power held by very few elites to control the lives of the citizens. Now, in my view, there's nothing American about that trend. It needs to be exposed, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has done. Now, it's up to us as the citizens as to what we do with this information now that we have it. The problem, however, is most people who are still consuming mainstream media sources actually know little, if any, of what's happening. After all, Steve Watson over at Summit News recently pointed out in a Zero Hedge article on December 15th, and I'm quoting the article here, the major left-leaning U.S. news networks have spent only 14 minutes between them covering Elon Musk's ongoing release of the Twitter files, which have highlighted a policy of censorship based on the partisan political alignment of woke former company executives and employees. The data drops have been almost completely ignored by the likes of CNN, NBC, ABC, and CBS. According to a Fox News report quoted in the article, the report notes that CNN covered the story for 3 minutes only on December 9th, while MSNBC spent 2 minutes on the story the same day, as well as 5 minutes on December 11th and 4 minutes on December 12th. CBS News, ABC News, NBC News have not discussed the Twitter files in the last week, it adds. So let's get into some of the disturbing revelations from the Twitter files dump that go to the core of my fascist claim. So, first of all, and this is from Patricia Tolson at the Epoch Times, who on Thursday, December 15th, wrote an article titled, Documents Uncover Secret Twitter Portal U.S. Government Used to Censor COVID-19 Content. And here's a quote from the article. New documents reveal how the United States government used a secret Twitter portal to censor COVID-19 content that contradicted the government's narrative. In its ongoing probe into Twitter's censorship practices, America First Legal has obtained a fourth set of documents exposing a secret Twitter portal which U.S. government officials used to censor dissenting COVID-19 views. So here's a quote from the article. New documents reveal how the United States government used a secret Twitter portal to censor COVID-19 content that contradicted the government's narrative. In its ongoing probe into Twitter's censorship practices, America First Legal has obtained the fourth set of documents exposing the Twitter portal which U.S. government officials used to censor dissenting COVID-19 views in violation of the First Amendment. It's a revelation Elon Musk described as extremely concerning. So the article continues. On May 10th, 2021, a Twitter employee recommended to a CDC official to enroll in Twitter's partner support portal, which he described as the best way to get a spreadsheet like this reviewed. On May 11th of 2021, the CDC official enrolled her personal Twitter account into Twitter's partner support portal, which allowed a special expedited report flow in the Twitter Help Center. And then there's this article from Wendell Husbo of Breitbart News on December 19th titled Twitter Files. Twitter employed gang of spies leading up to the 2020 election. Quoting the article, Twitter employed multiple former spies from the intelligence community leading up to the 2020 election, according to the seventh tranche of the Twitter Files released Monday by journalist Michael Schellenberger. Among the ex-spies who worked for Twitter was James Baker, the FBI's former general counsel, who was a key participant in pushing the 2016 Russia hoax against former President Donald Trump. Baker left the FBI in 2018 and joined the far-left Brookings Institution and CNN after his departure. In 2020, he joined Twitter as the Deputy General Counsel to Vice President of Legal. During his tenure, he played a key role in suppressing the New York Post's first story on Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. And as of 2020, there were so many former FBI employees at Twitter that they had created their own private Slack channel and a crib sheet to onboard new FBI arrivals, Schellenberger revealed. So we've all heard about the revolving door between government and the private sector. And I would argue that's exactly what Mussolini was talking about when he said he wanted to blend the government and private corporations together. And then finally, there's this article by Tyler Durden over at Zero Hedge titled "The Twitter Files: The Corporate Media Ignores the Biggest Story of the Decade." And this was put out on December 12th. Quoting the article here, "The biggest story of the past decade is not the COVID pandemic, the January 6th protests, the war in the Ukraine, the BLM riots, or even stagflationary crisis in the United States. Behind these major events is another story, one that connects them all together in a disturbing way. Even more important than the effects of geopolitical and economic chaos is the effect of mass censorship. Without the free exchange of information and debate, the public remains ignorant. Public perception of national and international affairs is a key determinant of the outcome of disasters and conflicts. This is why governments and elites from around the world often seek to manipulate the ways in which people digest information." The idea is rather simple. They believe that we, the people, cannot be allowed to come to our own conclusions. They think we cannot be trusted to develop the proper viewpoints, and we are not smart enough to understand the implications of governmental decisions. In other words, they believe the exact opposite of what is outlined in the U.S. Constitution. The establishment will give numerous reasons why they need to censor, suppress, spin, and misrepresent the facts of any given situation. But in the end, the real rationale is that they have a vision for society that is contrary to our foundations. They have appointed themselves the arbiters of reality to see that vision done. This is pure authoritarianism. It's the stuff of nightmares and revolutions. But for many years now, a large subsection of the world has denied such a dynamic exists. It's conspiracy theory, tinfoil hattery to claim that a small number of elites work together in secret to control public perception and govern our society from the shadows. After all, where's the proof? We now have that proof with the Twitter files dump. And the article continues here, and I'm quoting again. "The files simply confirm almost everything conservative and libertarian commentators have been saying for years. All those conspiracy theories about big tech censorship of conservatives actually turned out to be true. Not only that, but the theory that government agencies and officials from the DNC worked with big tech to silence and undermine their political opponents was also true. The exposure of Twitter is the biggest story of the decade because it provides proof of a hidden cabal. It shows the ugly mechanics behind the scenes and exposes a network of elites and their errand boys who were involved in direct operations to destroy the First Amendment for the sake of ideological supremacy. It's the classic definition of fascism, a definition that Benito Mussolini reiterated when he argued fascism should be more properly called corporatism because it is the merger of state and corporate power. And if this brand of fascism was happening within the halls of Twitter, then there's little doubt it also is happening in companies like Google, YouTube, Apple, Facebook, etc. Before we had evidence, now we have confirmation. The bottom line is this. According to the Bill of Rights, it is illegal for agents of the United States government to obstruct the free speech of law-abiding citizens. It does not matter if the action is done by using private businesses as a middleman. And if a private business is colluding with the government to implement political policy, then it is no longer a private business. Now, obviously that was a mouthful, and I know, but it hits the nail right on the head as to why this massive coordinated censorship is so dangerous to our way of life here in the United States. Now, one could argue that Trump had fascist tendencies and wanted complete authoritarian control. Well, maybe. One aspect of the fascist dictate is a renewed, strong state, and critics cite Trump's Make America Great Again position. The difference, in my opinion, is in the fascist view, that greatness comes from imperial conquest and controlling weaker states. Trump was actually one of the very few modern presidents who did not start a war to promote U.S. interests. I would argue that that was never Trump's intent. Also, even if Trump had desired total power, the checks and balances in the Constitution actually worked and power was transferred eventually. A true fascist would have dismantled those checks and balances, which is exactly what Mussolini and Hitler did when they took power in the 30s. Anytime you hear a Democrat or a leftist say the Constitution needs to be changed for this or that reason, be very concerned. Also, at the end of the day, Trump was up against pretty much everybody, the established media, government officials, and the bureaucrats of most of the government branches. And there was in no way at the end that he was going to be allowed to beat them. That is typical fascist ideology. The state knows best what is good for the people, regardless of who they elected to office. If the FBI in particular, and the government in general, is allowed to continue this mass censorship program without any accountability or punishment, the USA, as it was originally intended, is in serious trouble. And honestly, I'm not even sure we can right the ship and separate government and private sector collusion at this late stage without some amount of civil unrest. I remain diligent, however, and I'm trying to get this information out for public consumption to as many people that will listen. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, I'm glad Elon Musk is doing what he's doing, and I hope he continues to let the world know just how connected Twitter was with the establishment to censor any dissenting viewpoint. Okay, that's it for me and my take on fascism in the United States. I hope it was food for thought. I'll finish up like I always do. If you're in the military, the police departments, fire departments, first responders, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. This is the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, Observations on the World We Live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.